Yes. Do you learn a lot there?
Yes.
Do you respect your teachers?
Yes.
Do you respect each other?
Yes. Yes.
That's good. Would you help your fellow classmates if they were having a problem?
Yes.
That's good too. What are you doing?
I'm videotaping you.
Oh, start over. I didn't know you were doing that.
Yeah, too late.
Today I'm here to talk to you about the War of 1812. I got these flashcards right here. I'm supposed to be showing these to you and asking them whether they are true or false. Do you think I'm staying on task? No. No, I like to talk about things that are more interesting than this right here. I talk about this, but I get on the bad habit of getting off the subject matter and talking about something else that relates to what's on these cards. And I haven't got through all these cards yet. Well, I've actually got through them all. I did like the first half with the first group, and I did the second half of these with the second group. This third group, I got my journal out and I read to them the third part of the Star Spangled Banner, which is not what it was called back in 1814 when it was written. Anybody know who wrote the Star Spangled Banner? Who actually wrote the poem? What's the actual name of that poem? Well, does that flag still fly over Fort McHenry?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
You're asking me what the actual name is?
Of the poem that Francis Scott Key wrote.
I forgot.
Anybody know? Well, does that flag still fly? Is basically what the name of the poem was. Became the Star Spangled Banner later on. Now people stand for it. Wait a minute. A lot of people stand for it at football games. Some are now starting to kneel instead of standing. But it actually became the Star Spangled Banner during the Civil War, and it didn't actually become the official anthem for the United States until what year? Anybody know? What happened in 1929, 1930 was the beginning of what? The Great Depression. All the people needed to have a boost or pick up their morale. So the United States Congress, House of Representatives, and the Senate officially adopted the poem as their national anthem. So it didn't become our national anthem, Star Spangled Banner, until 1930 officially. Before that, it had been sang, and it was actually the music for the Star Spangled Banner was derived from a what? Old English tavern song. Okay, that's the music for our national anthem, is an old tavern song. Do they serve at baseball games? Get your beer here. So everything kind of gels together somehow. Now, how does all that have to do with the War of 1812? Well, let me start. I'm going to read this to you, this flashcard. You're going to tell me whether it's true or false. And we ended up having a third group, which raised two people would always raise them. One girl over there and another girl over here in the last group. They wouldn't raise their hand whether it's true or false. I said, well, how come you guys aren't raising your hands? I said, we don't know. So, okay. The militia were under the command of Governor of the Territory, Nidian Edwards. True or false? How many people think true? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. How many people think false? Everybody else?
You're not raising your hand because you don't know. Okay.
Gideon Edwards was the governor of the territory of Illinois in 1809. All the way until what year did we become a state? Does anybody know the year we became a state? Say it twice. Yeah, 1818. Very good, 1818. You know what month and day? I think it was August the 26th, which is good. If we celebrate our bicentennial next year, because it's going to be 2018, be 200 years. August is a good time to have the event celebrated, because that's when it's usually nice weather. It'd be bad if it was in January. It's like, oh man, there's not going to be very many things going on outside. Gideon Edwards was the governor. Now, here's one way to look at it. If each state has a National Guard, people who sign up for the National Guard, each state nowadays, who's in charge of the National Guard for the state of Illinois? Anybody know? Governor Rauner. He's in charge of the National Guard. Back then, the territory of Illinois was, governor was Gideon Edwards, who was in charge of the militia back in 1812. What was his name? Gideon Edwards. Right now you're in what town? Edwardsville. Who do you think that's named after? Okay, very good. Was Benjamin Stephenson in charge of the militia? He was a sheriff back in 1809. 1812, he was still sheriff down Kaskaskia. He's a good friend of Gideon Edwards. Guess what? Gideon Edwards says, you're not sheriff anymore, you're captain. Benjamin Stephenson. His job was to organize and sign people up for the militia. 3 companies around here were in the militia. The mounted spies positioned themselves in blockhouses at the corners of stockades. True or false? True? False. The mounted spies were actually the 3rd company that was organized here around Edwardsville. Captain Samuel Judy was the captain of the mounted spies. 21 men signed up for the mounted spies because they owned what? Cows they could ride on. Cows? What did they ride on back then? Horses. I did that earlier and they said motorcycles. No, they were horses. Mounted spies had horses. Sometimes they stayed in a blockhouse for the night, but as being mounted spies, their job was to ride in between the blockhouses that stretched from the Mississippi River all the way across the territory to the Wabash River, which was the eastern border. And they were riding between blockhouses to look for signs of who? Indians. They saw Indian signs, they would ride in different directions and warn the settlers, get to the blockhouses. Now the stockades around those, a lot of people call them forts. If the blockhouse was the fort, the stockade was a corral, because most of the settlers would bring what with them to the blockhouse? Their livestock. They didn't want to leave their livestock unattended, so they'd bring them to the stockade, shut the gate, keep all their horses and cows and everything inside the stockade. Families would go into the blockhouses. So that's not really a fort, it's a blockhouse with a stockade around it to keep the animals in. Because they didn't want their animals being captured or taken away by the Indians. The Illinois militia only had battles with local Indian groups. True or false? True and false. They didn't have battles with big Indian groups or tribes They had small scrimmages or ambushes with small groups of Indians. Both times they marched up towards Peoria, up in that area where there were Indian villages. There were no battles. Indians had scouts out. They saw the militia marching up there, about 500 militiamen with a lot of different firelocks, guns, and they said, we gotta run and hide because we don't want all these guys killing us. So they take off, we'll be by there. So the only thing we would accomplish would be burn their village and destroy their corn crop. So we fought the Indians, but we didn't really, we destroyed what they owned. Second time, same thing. We didn't fight them, we destroyed what they owned. If we burnt their villages and destroyed all their corn, we were basically trying to destroy them. What happened to the American buffalo? A lot of Indian tribes hunted them out in the plains. We slaughtered all the buffalo, and then what happened to the Indians? They starved. A lot of them starved because they didn't have their source of food that they used. Headquarters for the Illinois militia during the War of 1812 was Fort Dearborn. True or false? How many people say true? 3. How many people say you too? How many people say false? How many people don't know? It's false. Fort Dearborn was a trading post that the English ran up on Lake Michigan. There were no U.S. people up there. Fort Dearborn was where the English were telling the Indians, you go down and attack the settlers and force them back down below the Ohio River out of the Illinois Territory, you can have all your homeland back. You can live forever in peace in Illinois. Did that happen? No. There were over 5,000 men in the Illinois Territory. True or false? I think it's false. I said earlier, about 500 militia marched up towards the Indian villages. This says 5,000. Back in the early days, it was lucky if there was 5,000 people in the Illinois Territory. Later on, there was more than that because you had to have a certain number of people to be able to become a state. Well, anybody know how many people that is? About 60,000. A lot of times they counted their cows and their horses as members of the family when they went to sign up for the census. What's this person here? Name's Betsy. Oh, that's just somebody that lives on the farm with us. Moo. Don't laugh, they actually did that. Some women were allowed with the militia as they fought. They went along with the militia as they fought. True or false? It's true. Most men can't take care of themselves. They can't do their own laundry. They can't do their own cooking. True or false? True.
Why? How come the women have to do all the work?
Because the guys couldn't take care of themselves.
Okay. They didn't fight, though. They didn't fight. This says as they fought. So they went along, but they didn't fight. Well, there could have been some fights. Okay, members of the militia were paid $1 a month, but many times they received no pay for being in the militia. True or false?
That's false.
It's true.
Yay!
A lot of times you will say it's false because how much do you get per week for an allowance?
I do.
Some of you do, some of you don't.
Every
good job I did with 50 cents.
It was true. A lot of times they signed up and they weren't going to get any uniforms or military muskets or supplies or even pay. Why would you sign up? Because you want to protect your family, your home, and your neighbors. Those are 3 good reasons why they signed up to be in the militia. You would think 0, but just in this area right here is over 200 who signed up. How many total militia was there in the Illinois Territory? Wait a minute. The other question was, there was 5,000. And what did I say?
No.
500. Now somebody just said 50,000?
They probably didn't even have that many.
Wow. Okay, let's go on. It was during the battle of, did we talk about the Battle of Baltimore and the Star Spangled Banner? We did. You guys know the whole poem?
Yes.
Star Spangled Banner?
Yes.
It's a song now, but that's only the first part. There's actually 3 different parts. Okay? I think the third part of it is just as important as the one they sing now before football games. I just happen to have it wrote down in my journal. This is where I start getting off track. But I think this is important to hear.
Are you going to sing it?
Fort McHenry. No, it's a poem. You don't sing poems. Fort McHenry was September the 13th and the day after September the 14th. Francis Scott Key wrote a poem and it later became the Star Spangled Banner. 3 different parts. I'm going to read you the third part. Oh, thus be it ever when free men shall stand between their loved homes and what was desolation. Blessed with victory and peace, may the heaven-rescued land praise the power that have made and preserved us a nation. Then conquer we must, when our cause it is just. And this be our motto, and God is our trust. And the Star Spangled Banner in triumph shall wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. That's the third part. Now there's one particular phrase in that third part of the poem that says, and God is our trust. Does that sound familiar? You've never seen and God is our trust? And God we trust? Where have you seen it at?
Well, I don't. It's all money.
It's on money? Have you seen it on the dollar bill?
Yes.
Is it on the $5 bill?
I don't know.
Is it on the $10?
I don't think it's everything.
Who's the person on a $10 bill? Everybody should know this. There's a musical. Hamilton. Benjamin Franklin's on the $100 bill. Guess what else is on there? In God we trust. What's on the penny?
Abraham Lincoln.
In God we trust. Every single piece of American currency has in God we trust on it. Now why do you think we put that on all our coins? Hasn't always been on our coins. But why do you think you always see it now on all our money? Because it was written in what? The Star Spangled Banner. Now, how many times have you heard that part of the Star Spangled Banner? You sing the first part, but there's a lot of people don't know there's 3 different parts to it. There's a lot of people don't know that there's 5 different ones. Some of them were written during the Civil War. that were added to it. Because we're very patriotic and we're Americans. Americans help take care of each other because we trust in God. And when we were out there in Las Vegas a few weeks ago, and there was 58 people murdered and 500 wounded, what did people do? Stood all running away. A lot of them stayed and they helped the other people. The reason people sign up for the militia because they want to protect their family, their homes, and their neighbors. Well, guess what? When it was time to react, people stayed behind. They helped the people that were shot out there in Las Vegas. Because we're all Americans. Americans are good. Is that true or false? Wait a minute. Is that true or false? It's true. A lot of people in America are good people. That's why those things like that happen. So, you know a lot about the War of 1812? You know the treaty for the War of 1812 was signed on Christmas Eve, 1814? But there was still a battle fought 2 weeks later after the treaty was signed. Do you know what the treaty actually accomplished after the War of 1812? Could no longer have any kind of military on the Great Lakes. And it helped establish the borders, both west of the Great Lakes and east of the Great Lakes. Basically, that's all it accomplished. Did we beat England? We did New Orleans 2 weeks after the treaty was signed. But the actual treaty, the only thing it really decided was Canada and the United States would be peaceful from that day on. And you couldn't have any kind of warships or military in the Great Lakes. Basically, that was it. If you read history books, how many of you actually read history books? How many of you go to the library where you can check out a book? How come some of you don't?
Yeah, people. I always forget to turn it back.
You should do that even during the summer when you're on summer vacation. You should be going to the library and checking out books. It's one of the most important things you can do while you're going to school. It's one of the most important things you can do after you get done going to school. When you're old and got a gray beard, one of the important things you can do is keep reading books so you learn more. You should be doing that when you're in middle school, going to the library. I'm going to have to call the Line 9 Middle School and talk to some of the people up there. Make it a requirement that you have to get books checked out every week and read. Now, I was a teacher. What do you think I taught?
Literature.
They'll never guess.
Reading. Math.
History?
Science.
Algebra? No.
Were you a librarian?
No.
PE teacher? PE teacher. Math.
One time, one semester, I was a PE teacher. I taught art.
Oh. We don't have that at our school.
Now, how come an art teacher knows so much about the War of 1812?
You probably painted it.
Because I could paint it? No, I couldn't paint it unless I did what? Could not paint it unless I did what? I got books and read about it. So I would know what to paint. Have I ever painted the War of 1812? No.